Welcome to another OCD recovery YouTube video, talking a little bit about some of the things that go on with the recovery journey, some of the thinking that goes on sort of behind the scenes that we often miss. Now let's start with what I find sometimes I think doesn't really portray OCD in the right, not portray OCD, doesn't really help people with OCD in the best way, is like often when I hear phrases or like on social media and so on where people are like, you can do hard things and stuff like that, it sounds almost like you're sort of saying to somebody like they can't do hard things, but you can do, like, you know, you can do some hard things if you try. It sounds very gentle, like almost putting the OCD sufferer down into a sort of kind of very vulnerable, kind of very they can't manage position. Now that ain't true at all, because I've seen people go from feeling like they can't do anything to like overcoming more than most people that I can think of. Humans have got a great capacity for strength, resilience, and they adapt. Humans adapt. But if you avoid everything, you keep away from discomfort, then it can very much feel like, oh, that'd be too difficult. Now, I'm not taking anything away from those phrases like you can do hard things. I'm talking more about the tone, how these things are portrayed. Often it's portrayed like the OCD sufferer is sort of weak or sort of just very delicate. They're not. They're human. They can do all these things. They can really overcome things, and they don't need treating with cotton wool. Okay, that's an approach where you often see people talking to OCD sufferers in a very sort of light, soft tone. They don't need talking to like that in a light, soft tone. They speak to them like human beings. It's like if you speak to a baby in a sort of complete babyish voice all the time for ages, baby doesn't really grow up very well in that voice. It's best to, and same with children, it's best for maturity and growth. It's best to treat people in the way that's going to help their development the best. The same as with a dog. If you speak to a dog and sort of really sort of in a sort of cute, funny language all the time and sort of pandering to the dog all the time, the dog grows up to be a bit of a brat. And if you watch dog trainers that talk about it, they say you've got to speak to the dog and show, you know, how you're speaking to the dog, the behavior you speak to, how you act with the dog is crucial in its development. And if you do sort of that really sort of babyish and sort of pandering to everything with it, it grows up in not the way you want, and it can't be left for a minute and all that kind of stuff. So that's the same with OCD. We've got to have structure, good life structure, healthy sort of tough love. It's compassionate but directed towards getting growth and to helping them recover. And you're going to need those things. You can't expect recovery to come from a place of no hard work, just scrolling. That's not where it comes from. You can't just scroll your way to recovery. You need to change your thinking by working on your perspectives, which involves reading and challenging irrational beliefs, as well as usually exposures, not always, and a lot of life structure changes that are healthier, getting up, not just laying in bed all morning, not spending all day on computer games and Netflix, just asking your friends and family how they are, helping them, working, exercising, all these things that are often avoided as we're caught in this OCD cycle trap where we feel like we're looking through misted glass, sort of checked out in our mind, inward focused, waiting for OCD to go. All our focus on when will OCD go, complete focus on that. And that becomes a nightmare, because then we're just sort of watching like a hawk, anxiety symptoms, like only when this is gone can I interact, only then can I be happy. We need to learn to bring it for the ride. That's why it's so key that we always mention that bring it for the ride stuff, because that sets in place the sort of base layer for recovery, the sort of building blocks. Because as we learn to bring OCD for the ride, change our perception of OCD and suffering in general, learn to change our perspectives on our fears, our core fears, we're gradually transitioning to recovery. But you won't do that just by sitting scrolling, because there's not anything that's actually changing happening. So that is key. That is vital. Now, people don't often like to hear this, because anything that sort of confronts discomfort or confronts the way that people have been living often think, well, no, I like to watch computer games and I'm going through a hard time, so I want to stay in bed for 3 hours. Now, that's all right. You can do that. But if you just look at the success of people that recover, they tend to be the ones who aren't sitting scrolling, right? And that goes for complaining too, right? Because we can get into a habit of, oh, I fucking hate OCD. If only I didn't have OCD. This is the worst thing ever. Anything but this, over and over and over, thinking that, and that gets nowhere. I've seen that in forums for years. I see that all the time in the OCD community. People often, oh, this is the worst thing. Oh my God, have you got that? That's the worst thought. I had that. I can barely do anything because of that. If only that hadn't. That complaining, that is a zero return investment. It is not going to improve your life. The people that tend to have the lives that we want to have tend to be people that are overcoming obstacles, tend to be people that are changing how they see things and approaching life in a way that's going to get them towards their goals in the best way. And complaining is a zero return investment. You've got to really focus on that. Every time you go to complain, ask yourself, where's this getting me? Where's this getting me, this complaining? Because it's not getting you anywhere, but you feel like, I've just got to vent, I've just got to let this out. If you're sitting in your house venting to your mum all day about OCD, that's getting you nowhere. It really is getting you nowhere. But you've got to really hold yourself accountable and be aware of that. Now, I know that's not what you want to hear, but I'm in the job of telling people the things that they don't want to hear. Why? Because that is what is going to bring about change. So many OCD recovery journeys end where life structure goes out the window, where they stop working on recovery, where they start coasting because they accept this is as good as it gets and they get fed up with it, or where just generally it feels too difficult and it's easier to not do the things needed to recover. Now, I know that's not easy. I've walked this journey, and when I was walking this journey, it was very, very difficult. And at so many points I thought, how am I ever going to get out of this? This is just so much anxiety and stress day to day. I'm finding it hard just to function day by day. But we get there. We get there in the end, one day at a time. If you look at it as a Everest-like mission, you're going to feel completely daunted and it's the hardest thing and the scariest thing ever. If you break it down little by little by little, then it's easier. You've just got to think, can I get through the next hour, next 2-3 hours? What can I learn today? Treat the journey as something you're learning. Don't treat it as something you need to get down and out of the way. Look and think, what am I learning? What am I getting from this suffering? The meaning, like Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning. What am I getting from this suffering that's going to change my life? It's going to change the outlook on my life. It's going to empower me to live how I want to live, to get the goals that I want to get goals further than I had imagined. That is where you need to be thinking. You can read all day long about people achieving recovery and how they did it, but to do it is going to involve discomfort. It's going to involve practice. It's going to involve learning. You've got to think of this journey as if it was easy, everyone would recover. Forums would be empty. Forums aren't empty. Forums are full of the same people I saw 20 years ago talking about, this is the worst. If only that thing hadn't happened. Now it's morphed. If only it hadn't morphed. I was like that at the beginning. Then I realized that wasn't getting me anywhere, and I had to change my thinking. I had to see why I kept disturbing myself in this cycle of constant anxiety, constant guilt, constant beating myself up. So that's key, and I wanted to really mention that because it's not going to happen on its own. Nobody else can get you recovered. I can guide you, but you've got to walk it. Your mum and dad can help you, but you've got to walk it, right? That is key. People often think, some people come into calls with me and they sit on the phone and expect me to say magic words that's going to get them cured. No, that's not how it works. You've got to work through what you're scared of. You've got to look at the beliefs. You've got to work at it together, breaking down those perceptions that are keeping that cycle going, looking at why you're stuck, coming up with exercises to help you with that. and breaking that down bit by bit. Now, there's not always exercises. Often it's just shaping those beliefs, changing those irrational beliefs through conversation. People get very caught up on, I need this exposure, because we know that exposures can bring instant relief. So then we chase exposures. And then when we're not getting better, oh, I'm not learning enough, or I'm doing it wrong, or it's too difficult, or whatever. Of course, it's a process, and it's not all going to be how you want it to be on the way. Sometimes you'll have to read more and learn more about a certain thing. Sometimes you'll need to get more comfortable with the anxiety feelings as you're internally fighting to escape them. So all these things are part of that process. Everyone wants it gone instantly. Everyone wants rid of it. And there's tons of places out there that will tell you you can have rid of it in a week. And I have never, ever seen that for chronic severe OCD. There'll be plenty of people that will tell you that. You know, even when I used to go to hospital and I was, oh my God, my OCD is so bad. I'll just have these 6 sessions, most people improve. Then I'd get to the end of 6 sessions. Oh my God, I haven't improved. This is terrible. I'm stuck like this forever. That is such a key point. It's a journey. You can't say this number of sessions and fixed. You can have a rough idea that, okay, if I'm working on this and doing in this work month by month, I'm going to see a big improvement. But you can't say, I'll be improved by then. I'll be improved after that, specifically at that date. It doesn't work like that. So I think that's key, all those points to understand, because otherwise, too much of the journey, people think, oh, if I just ask this one question and get that answer, then I'll be fixed. Hence why my DMs always look like that. Rob, can I just ask you this one question? Or all the time, those kind of things. People don't realize that it's not just that one question, because there'll be another question that comes from the same place where you're stuck. So we've got to work at what that place is where you're stuck, not on just the next fired up question, the next question, the next question, the next question that's being fired up from that position, because it's always going to keep doing that whilst those strong, rigid, irrational beliefs are there fueling on those core fears. So there'll always be another question. Oh my God, it just morphed. If only it hadn't morphed. If I was only ... It's always going to do that. You know, and it's always going to feel as real as it can get, and it's always going to feel like you're the only person with that, and you're always going to feel like the exception. And if you've been working on recovery quite a long time, you're going to think it shouldn't take this long. These are all parts of the process that we've all been through, and we've all been stuck at times, and we become completely convinced that this is exactly how we're going to be for the rest of our life, because we've been feeling this baseline chronic guilt and anxiety for so long. How could we ever get out of this position? Everyone gets convinced of this in different ways or another, whether you've been stuck a year, whether you've been stuck 10 years, it doesn't matter how long or how old you are, none of that is relevant to whether you will recover or not. Recovery is based on changing your perspectives, changing your relationship with anxiety, getting comfortable with uncertainty, changing your life philosophies, all of this, so that you change that internal framework that OCD operates on, so that the chronic guilt and chronic anxiety cycle can't be fueled and refueled again and again and again and again. Guys, great to see you on here. I'll be back on here with another video talking about the recovery journey probably tomorrow, and I will see you then. All right, guys, see you later.